up, everybody? Happy Friday to you. Woo! We came off some spicy live streams yesterday, so today we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk to somebody who I've admired from seeing his posts on Instagram. He's relatively young. He looks younger than he really is. I guarantee he's not 14. His name is Roy Cranston. What is up? Okay, so what I know about Roy. Roy graduated recently, very recently, from the Graphic Design University of Wisconsin, Eau Claire in 2019. That's where he got his bachelor's degree. And just like that, he interned, and now he's working at a place called Works. He's a designer at Works. He's working at Works. And now he's living in New York City. And here's some of his really super cool posters. Now, guys, you know, I'm not a guy who's just going to jump on somebody because they do okay. I really admire his typography, his level of experimentation, and I'm a type nerd. And so when I see somebody else flexing their type skills, I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. And if Roy wasn't working somewhere else right now, I might even be tempted to just bring him under the wings here and just make content with us and design stuff all day long. And I like the variety of his approaches. Some things look 2D, some things are photo collage, I think, some Photoshop things, maybe even some 3D things, and we'll get into that. So if you're an up-and-coming designer and you want to catch the eye of a prospective studio that might want to hire you or just get some good old-fashioned freelance work, make a poster. And I think he's been making posters or designs every single day for a little bit of time because there's a lot of images that I've seen on his account. Some really cool stuff. Neat ideas in here. Yeah. And then this is the promo graphic that we use. Roy Cranston, welcome to the future. How you doing, man?
Yeah, Roy! Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, man. Are you at work today, or are you done with work?
I'm done with work. I had to hurry home in the rain to make this on
Man,
time.
the sacrifices you will make to be on the show.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's going to be a lot of questions, I know, already. Let's just talk about the things that's just right on everybody's mind right now. Dude, how old are you? You cannot be that old.
I turned 23 back in September, so a little older than 23.
So if we had done this live stream last month or 2 months ago, you'd still be 22.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a fresh 23-year-old. Okay, it's awesome. Now, I have a bunch of questions for you because I'm looking at your posters. I've never heard of your university before, your college. This is not a diss, but I was like, wow, you're producing some really good work, man. Did you learn these type skills from going to school?
So it's not a design school. It's just like a regular liberal arts college, and they have a design program. So yeah, I learned stuff there. But I attribute a lot of my typography understanding and design knowledge to your YouTube channel.
Oh, wow.
I don't know if you know that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, this is when you asked if I'd like to be on the show, that was a pretty crazy full circle moment for me, considering I started learning and then I applied all that learning and then I get to come share what I've created with that learning back on the show. So it's very cool.
Okay, guys, this is not a setup. I did not prompt him to say this, but the check is in the mail, Roy. Thank you very much for saying that. Where's my dollar sign? Where's that sound effect? I can't find it right now. Okay, this is super cool. So this is even more remarkable to me that you went to the liberal arts college, which means they don't have a concentrated design program, right? So you kind of have to figure it out on your own. And
yeah, basically, I took a lot of other classes. Most of my time was spent, for the first couple of years, was not spent in the design program. It was not spent, in the fine arts building at all.
I see. I'm still confused. I mean, how can you watch a few videos and figure it out through the liberal arts program? I like your type a lot, dude. There's something else here. Is one of your parents a designer? How does somebody go to liberal arts school, watch a couple of videos on YouTube, and have the kind of skills that you have?
Okay. My mom is an incredible artist, and my dad's a great musician and artist as well. I have a pretty creative family, and I had a creative upbringing. But I don't want to understate how much I spent online taking not other courses particularly, but learning from the internet. I've spent, I was telling Jonah beforehand, hundreds of hours poring over specifically the Futur and other content as well.
Wow. Okay, this is
there
awesome.
You go. There is that other check.
Perfect. Thank you.
I'm going to find that sound effects, the dollar sign cash register sound effect. I'm going to be broke by the end of this show because Roy is going to keep saying that, and I'm trying to prompt him to say something else, but I guess I'll accept it. Okay, so what inspired you to make a post every day, and when did this start?
This started on New Year's of 2019. It was pretty spontaneous. I didn't really think about it. I think it actually started on New Year's Eve is when I was like, oh, I'm going to do this. I didn't have a New Year's resolution. And I was feeling particularly lazy, but also like ambitious at the time. I didn't feel like, well, 2018 was a pretty big learning year for me. If I look at where I started in 2018 and where I ended, there was a lot of growth, but I wanted 2019 to be like exponential growth. And I was like, well, the only way I can really figure out how to do that is to just not stop working, basically. And I have people that I looked up to on Instagram and online that I had seen posting as often as every day or creating a project every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to think about what that really means, what the consequences are. I'm just going to commit to it. And then I started.
Okay, so do you remember how many followers you had on Instagram at the beginning of 2019?
I think I had like 40 or 50. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So you had 40 or 50. What are you up to now?
I'm around 35,000, I think. Somewhere in
That
there.
that is great.
I know.
And so was the followers coming in like at the beginning? Did it happen right away for you? Did it take some time? Because you just said I wasn't really paying attention to that. I'm just going to make stuff. So tell me more about that.
I wasn't really super paying attention to the followers. I didn't really care about any of that. It was more just like the creative output for me. But I don't know when it was. It was right at, I wasn't really getting followers.
Yeah.
And, but right around like month 2 or something, I had one post that did particularly well. And then from that point on, like it was just upward trajectory, I guess, like followers and audience wise.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really thought about, like really processed what was happening. I just kept making stuff. Like I just stayed consistent and the growth stayed consistent the whole time. And it kind of still has.
Mm-hmm. When you got that spike in followers, did you try to trace like where that might come from? Like maybe somebody shouted you out. Were you featured somewhere?
Oh, it was 100% the hashtags I used.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Look at that.
I was just, prior to that, I was just using like stupid ones that I picked. I wasn't really paying attention to them. Cause like I said, I wasn't in it for the exposure, the followers. It was just a creative output. But I was like, I followed some people that were doing similar stuff and I'm like, I'm just going to rip off whatever hashtags they're using.
Good strategy right there.
Yeah. I just stole them.
Yeah. They're doing well. Let's use that.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
I'm like, hashtags are free.
Right.
Nobody cares if I use the exact same ones.
Right.
So then, yeah, I just use the same ones and I still use those exact same ones. I haven't changed them.
I see.
So if someone wants good hashtags, just copy mine.
But you probably need to do like design and typography and something like that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. In case you guys are joining us, I know I skipped through some of your work really quickly, but every once in a while, Jonah will cut back to us. We're talking about this so you guys know why Roy is on the show. He's a recent graduate, and I was really kind of drawn into his posters, and I'm pretty choosy about who I follow on Instagram, and so I'm following you, and then I realized you started commenting on some things, and I was thinking, I got to get you on the show, and I have no idea who you are, and then I'm shocked that you're American, that you're 23 years old, and here we are, and now you're just recently employed. This is fantastic. Things are looking up for you in the world here.
Yeah, sometimes I kind of have to pinch myself. Like things are just going well, so just my old boss at my internship just tells me always stay humble. So I just try to stay humble, I guess, and not think about any of that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Was moving from Wisconsin to New York a big change for you, and how did you handle that?
Honestly, I don't think it was that crazy.
Really?
It was. So what happened was I had done some freelance for the studio Works. Mm-hmm. And prior to like New York or any of that conversation happening, and then they asked me at the beginning of August, they were like, do you want to come out to New York for a month and work with us? And I didn't really think about it. I said yes. And like 2 days later, I was on a plane and then I was in New York. So it wasn't like I really thought too much about it.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the posters series, like, or the 2019 project. Like I just dove in and didn't really think too much about it. But now that I'm here, it's very cool. And I'm so glad that I did it. Like Wisconsin is not the creative capital of the world.
It might be the cheese capital of the world.
Yeah, that we're known for something, I guess.
Yes, you're known for that at least. Other things too. Friendly people, salt of the earth, you know? humble people.
Yeah, that's good
I like
too.
that. Yeah. So you are freelancing for works, and how did they find you? Through Instagram?
Yeah, they actually just direct messaged me, DM'd me on Instagram, and asked if we could connect, and then that's how it happened. Like that's how all the freelance work I've done since has come through, is just through Instagram. Even it didn't work out, but I even had another job opportunity right after college in Los Angeles, actually, that came through Instagram as well. So it kind of like that's where everything comes through.
Can I ask you some questions about that, about your work and freelancing? People who watch the show, and I think you do watch the show, so you kind of know what to expect to some degree. So here you are, you're posting things on Instagram, you're not caring about what happens. You discover if you just use hashtags that are working for other people, it might work for you, and things start to hit. You grow from the beginning of this year from 40 followers to, I mean, you're getting real close to 40,000 followers. That's some impressive feat there. And in the process of doing that, some people notice you. Not me. People who have money, they're going to do things with you. So they reach out. What's the gig? What does this sound like? How much is it? And did it make you nervous? Just bring me back to that point in time. Something pops up in your DM. Talk me through and just spin a good yarn for us, will you?
Yeah. So the first ones that came through were pretty small, I would say. Like. Nothing crazy, and I wouldn't say I've had like huge like Nike's not DMing me necessarily, but if they're watching, like, you can hit me up.
Nike, hear that? Roy Cranston, hit him up, and we'll drop your Instagram right now, which is at Roy_Cranston, right?
Yeah, thank you.
I'll pop that in chat. Yeah, at Roy_Cranston. Keep going.
But then one of the bigger ones was company out in Los Angeles, and they were like, I thought it was just a troll. Like, I didn't really think anything of it because it seemed too good to be true. It just was, this whole thing is just like almost too good to be true. Like, just start, like you said, you just start posting on Instagram, you throw a couple decent hashtags under a picture, and suddenly like places in LA are messaging you, offering to fly you out for interviews.
Yeah.
So what happened with that one specifically was I flew out, I interviewed, it went well, but turns out they weren't going to take on anybody like internally. So I ended up just freelancing for them from Wisconsin. And then that was kind of like my first big client. Did like concept typography, emotion typography concepts for them. And then like smaller ones, a lot of Instagram, from what I can understand, seems to be a lot of like music related, like album artwork, stuff like that. I don't, like I said, I don't know how much Nike is reaching out to people in DMs. Maybe they are, and they're just not hitting me up. But then this studio came along that I now work for. They were like, we have a couple projects if you're interested, that were pertinent to my skill set. And then, and I still get people almost every day. I get people messaging me, asking me to do stuff. And typically I turn them down because they're, like, when you're getting that quantity, it's like you can't sustain that. And a lot of them are smaller, but then there's big fish too, that now I kind of take through the studio that I work at, and we try to turn those into something bigger, because I'm obviously new to all this stuff. I'm pretty young, so I don't have a ton of experience like reeling in clients, and so they've been super helpful with that as well.
Okay. But you skipped over some valuable details here.
Okay.
What was the ask, and how much money were we talking about?
Okay. It's tough because I'm not super amazing with this stuff. So
no, that's okay. Nobody's judging you. I mean, maybe I can even help you here. I don't know.
Okay, cool.
So let's do it like that.
Typically, what they do is they ask for a rate. They usually don't hit me with the budget or something because they want to know if they can get me for cheaper or something.
Right.
And had I not watched The Futur, I probably would have said like $15 an hour or something. And at the time when I was smaller, I probably had like 2,000 or 3,000 followers when this first client from LA hit me up. And I said, I'll do it for $50 an hour.
That's a pretty good rate for a guy just out of school.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
You're doing pretty good.
Yeah. I was like, that seems fair. I knew who the company was. I knew they had some money. Like, it wasn't like they were going to be blown away at that price. And they were like, yeah, that's cool. We can do that. I I don't remember the exact amount of hours I put into the concepts, but the paycheck ended up being about like $2,000, which
Beautiful.
It doesn't seem like huge, but
It's like
for
a week's
me,
worth of work. That's a lot of money, man.
That's what it was. Yeah, it was a week's worth of work.
I want to keep everything in context here. Yeah, here in America, $2,000. I mean, look, that gets you a computer. That gets you lots of things. It gets you a whole wardrobe if that's what you want. Or if you're living in a developing country, $2,000 is like what somebody might even make in half a year. So there's no shame in saying you made $2,000 on doing this stuff. And so they were asking you for your rate. This is very typical. So I'm going to write this down. So they ask you, what's your rate? And I'm going to assume they're asking you for things that they're seeing on Instagram, like typographic experiments with images and things like that.
Yeah, this was right after I had done, or maybe in the midst of 36 Days of Type, if you're familiar with that. Are you 36 Days of Type? No? Oh, okay. So you do, it's like kind of a big worldwide Instagram thing where for 36 days you do one letter of the alphabet and then all the numbers. So like day 1 is A, day 2 is B, and you animate them or draw them or do some sort of design with them.
I see.
And I decided I was going to do animation of every letter for 36 days, or every letter and number. And that ended up being like, that caught the eye. That's actually what caught the eye of the studio that I work at currently, was this motion design stuff blended with like the typography, compositional stuff I was working on. I don't know. I went off on a tangent. I don't really remember what you asked.
I don't remember either, so that's okay.
Okay.
But I'm trying to build the breadcrumbs in terms of like what led you to your success. So there's some things I'm writing down here, okay? All right.
The original question was how did he catch the eye of the studio that he's currently working at?
Yeah. So that was the 36 Days of Type. Those ended up being pretty popular, I think. You know, you can there was a hashtag for each individual day, like 36 Days of Type A or something. And if you click that, you can see all like the top really popular ones from that day. And mine typically were like in the top ones of the day, each day. So I know there's probably tens of, maybe even 100,000 people looking at those hashtags. So it was kind of just like bound to happen, I guess. Like you're bound to catch the attention of some people.
Yeah. Okay, so you're doing these projects. Are you nervous at all? Because this is like the first time you're doing like real work for a remote client that you could deliver. Take me through your thought process, or are you just like, nope, I could do this. There's no problem.
I wish it was the latter. No, I was like paralyzed by fear of like not performing well.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I'm fresh out of school. I don't have a ton of like, when I think about all the people that are out there and I'm like, why me? You know, you get this imposter syndrome and then,
yes.
you know, you've spoken about it
and
time again on the Futur. So, and no matter how many times you hear about it and you think about it, you get in the moment and you're just like, this is a lot for me. I'm used to just making a couple posters for a class. And then now all of a sudden there's real money on the line. These are potential concepts for a client that could go out. Millions of people could see these. So yeah, it was like super scary for me, and I got slightly better at it as I went along. And I think now I'm still not amazing at it. I still get that like imposter syndrome, but I work with really awesome people that like I'm not as worried to fail. They help me like set realistic expectations and things of that sort as well.
Yeah, you mentioned that you design and you also animate. So you're doing things in Cinema 4D, After Effects?
Like mostly After Effects. I don't have a ton of Cinema 4D experience. I would not put that as like a skill set of mine. Okay,
so is it Illustrator, Photoshop, and After Effects, the Adobe suite?
Yeah, that's what I would say.
Okay, cool. I want to bring up this one image of yours here, one of your posters on the right side of the screen here, the one where you're repeating this type. Is this good old-fashioned photocopier or Photoshop, or what are we doing here? The one where we're repeating the type.
The one that says, "Why are you here?"
Yeah.
That's just Photoshop. I like to try to like do this analog thing. I like things to feel analog, and I don't always have access to all the raw materials. So this is 100% Photoshop. It's just I used Photoshop brushes that I've like collected over time.
Yeah, it's got a really good look. So if you guys look at Roy's work, you're going to see a combination of things that look like he pulled it out of the 80s bin in the magazine section or something, some folds, some really nice texturing going on. So here's another one here, the one that says never complain, never explain. I like that one too. That's just good old-fashioned Photoshop with some perspective, or doing it in After Effects this time?
Yeah, that's After Effects because I can work in 3 dimensions there. And then I just like tilt the axis and just export the still as a composition.
And is your comp like super gigantic?
Yeah, yeah.
So somebody's asking already in terms of like Instagram, what resolution are you working at for these posts?
I believe the posters themselves are 3,500 by 5,000, and then I export those as a JPEG, and then I have a specific like Instagram template in Illustrator that I link everything to, and then I export that so I get the nice same black frame every time. I'm not sure what my exact dimensions are for like the framing and stuff, but I know the posters I'm working are 3,500 by 5,000, which if I was to do this again, I would make them much larger because you can't really print out anything large format when it's only 3,500 by 5,000.
Yeah.
So that's, I mean, that kind of sucks, but I'm not going to switch it up now in the 11th hour.
Yeah. That's cool. I was thinking about this. This was a conversation Matthew and I were having the other day when I was driving. He was like, Chris, we need to get our team of 12 people here to start to make content, to be authors of content. And we can set the bar fairly manageable so that everybody makes like one little thing each week or a couple things each week where we explain something. And as I was going through your work in preparation for our conversation today, I was like, man, Roy would be a pretty good person to have on the team. He could just sit there and make a poster a day and show how he does it. And I think that would be super popular. So, if things don't work out for you at work, give me a call afterwards and let's see what we can make happen, right? I think that'd be pretty cool. I think you'd like the team here. And here's some more of his work. I mean, this is I don't want to pull up his Instagram account. You guys can go there. It's Roy_Cranston. So at Roy_Cranston. And you guys can check out his work. I'm really liking it. It's got this really cool vibe to it. It's kind of analog, even though it's all digital. And now he's in New York, and I'm seeing like little fragments of things that are like popping up from where he's at. So maybe all the kind of industrial, metropolitan signage and graphics and textures and materials are kind of creeping into your work now. Do you have a giant collection of elements that you can use over and over again?
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I have tons of content that I just scrape from. People are always like, where do you get your images? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. Like there are weekends when I will just spend 15, 16 hours just like deep diving on the internet to find like cool little textures and stuff I can find. Like when you talk about the textures on the posters, I get a message almost every day. People are like, where do you get your textures? And I'm like, if people spent as much time as they do like asking about where to get textures, and they just invest that time like researching and or going online and figuring it out themselves.
Yeah,
like
I know what you mean.
There is so much out there, and that's another thing. Like once you get beyond the front page of like Instagram and Pinterest, the internet is so deep. There's so much out there, and the internet even doesn't get you that far. Like I've started now to look in old textbooks and stuff for cool images and textures. Being in New York as well, I'm surrounded by crazy like cool urban textures. I'm always taking photos and distorting those and throwing those in. So it's just like the everyday of the world that manifests into these.
Catherine Adams is asking, are you using stock photography or are you just ripping things off of Google?
It is kind of a combination of everything. Like I have some of my own photos in there. I try not to use anything that like obviously I don't have the rights to. Yeah. Like I don't really like to just rip stuff off, even if it's like there's like what like you can do that. Like you can take something off Google and like distort it and stuff and you're fine. Like you're not going to get a copyright strike or anything like that. But for the most part I'm looking at like free, royalty free stuff like that. And I don't actually pay for any stock photo sites. I don't spend $1 on really anything except for typefaces. I spend a lot on typefaces, but like images and stuff, no.
Okay, that answers it. Here's a business idea. Sometimes these things happen during our live streams. Here's a business idea. While you're in New York, get a camera, shoot some things, make a Roy Cranston texture pack. We'd be happy to sell it for you.
I'm actually doing that, but I'm probably just going to give it away for free. I had already thought about this.
Wound. Okay, no, I'm just kidding. You can give it away for free. Yeah, no, you can do that.
Well, my thing is, I come from Wisconsin, and it's like, unless you want textures of pine trees and like gravel, there's really not a lot out there for like this cool urban stuff. And I'm like, wow, I have this crazy cool opportunity to come to New York City, and I'm just surrounded by like this urban, this texture, this culture, like so many things and layers. The city is just like built on top of itself, and 99% of people don't get to experience that. And I know back when I started this poster series, I would have given anything to like have access to that world a little bit through texture in the work or something. So now that I have a decent amount of followers and stuff, I'm more than happy to give that away for free. So that's kind of the plan with that stuff.
So young, so naive.
I know.
No, I'm glad somebody's saying bless your heart, Roy, for you giving away for free. It's excellent. There are a lot of great resources out there that you guys can get textures legitimately. You can go to places like Creative Market, Envato. You can go to Shutterstock. I'm not getting paid to say any of this. I'm just saying it. In case you're listening, you can sponsor the show. But okay, let's get back to some business. Okay, so you're going to give out a free texture pack, answering the questions, maybe some brushes or whatever else that you've made that you can legitimately sell and because you own it. But if you're in a small town, I don't know you have to go to New York, but let's just remove that off the table. You could easily take a trip to New York, especially if you live in United States of America. But you could do what Aaron Draplin does. You can go junking. You can go to these crusty old places, these swap meets, these yard sales, and just go pull out some scraps. Pull it out of the trash. You can go to the dump. You can go to the junkyard, literally, and try and find some stuff like the underside of cardboard packages, plastic bags, and because I see it in your work. There's all kinds of stuff, and I use mostly Shutterstock. I also have a pretty large library of original textures, but it takes me longer to find my own textures than it does to go on Shutterstock and type it in, and then boom, there it is, download it. So that's another thing that you guys can do if you're watching this, okay? We have one of those plans where we can download a couple hundred images, and they're not for commercial use, so it's totally fine for this kind of stuff. Okay, some people are wondering what's up with the hair. Yes, as you can tell, I have grown a little bit of hair since yesterday. I'm just having a little fun today, guys. I think people think I'm more emotionally wound up than I am, maybe because they're projecting a little bit. I'm actually pretty cool as a cucumber. I'm having fun. So as you guys can see, I've been putting out some sarcastic comments, tweets, images, and just having fun is all. We take things too seriously. Everybody's so mad at each other. So I want to make sure we end the week strong, happy, talking to Roy Cranston, this young gun, this young buck. He's out there doing good work in the world. And the fact that he mentioned learning from watching the Futur videos. There it goes. And he's doing great work. He's working. So there's a lot of people who wonder this. Oh, Chris, why would I post work on Instagram? Because only other designers will follow me. Roy Cranston, Exhibit A, Your Honor, I rest my case. It's done. Kid's getting work. He got hired. He's on shows. He's doing stuff. He's making texture packs. People want stuff. This is what I'm talking about. We live in this new economy where there is this really powerful, like this thank you net. What is the thank you economy? You produce good work. People check it out. It's so easy, relatively speaking, to be discovered if you're consistent, if you do work, if you show up every single day. Almost every single person that I talk to that applies this formula in their life, they're doing really well. And I want you guys to do well. So get over yourself. Just get that work out there and rip off a couple of hashtags. You'll be fine.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, Roy, if Nike were watching this, if Nike stumbles into your account, how much money is it going to take for Nike to hire you to do like a cool poster campaign for one of their new shoes for next year? What are you talking about?
I don't know if I'm in a position to like throw a number out. Mm-hmm. I don't want to like get stuck with anything.
Anchor high. Anchor high, my friend. Anchor high. You could do it. Anchor high. Okay.
A poster series. How many
like
posters are we talking?
3 posters for a new shoe, running on bus boards, that kind of stuff, like bus stops. You know, those big ones.
Yeah,
something like that.
I would say $12,000.
Beautiful. Sorry. I stumbled on that button. Now that I know where it is, $12,000. Excellent. And Nike, that's a steal. That's a steal for this young man. Get him before his rates go up.
Yeah, exactly. They go up soon. They're going up.
They're totally up right now. Yeah, they're up already. So good job there. Okay. People are checking this out. That's what you want to do. And that's his favorite Nike rate, okay? If you're like some brand he doesn't care about, it's going to be more money than that. Boom.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I would love to have Nike work in my portfolio. So 12,000 is a steal. Yeah.
It's a steal. You're almost buying it for $2,000.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Okay. IX Falls is saying, hey, here's an idea for Roy. Create a post every day for 2020 for Nike until they recognize him and ask for it. I don't love that idea, IX Falls, because you're already doing the free work. Let's just keep you doing you, and Nike will pay attention. And we know other artists who've done work and are now working at Nike or with Nike in some capacity. So they are looking for fresh new content, new artists. Just keep building your brand. You're doing great. You're doing amazing. I mean, I'm saying great is like, that's an understatement. You're doing phenomenal, dude.
Thanks.
Good job. Okay. What else are we looking at here? There aren't a lot of questions, guys. If you have a question for Roy about his process, how he does what he does, here's another question I have for you. I mean, put it in the comments. And I'm watching the live audience right now commenting, but here's a question for you. Where do you get the words from? Each poster seems to revolve around an idea, word, a theme, something like, do you have a book of words that you use? Are they lyrics from songs? Do you eat a fortune cookie and that whatever it says you do? How does it work?
The answer to this is kind of in tandem with like what we're talking about stock photography. Like there is just so much happening around us all the time. Like you just have to be a sponge and just soak it up. Like just open your eyes a little wider because there's cool stuff. Like I have just a big Notion like page or whatever, where it is just every crazy thought I have throughout the day that could somehow be relevant to a poster. Cool, like you said, a cool song lyric. I hear somebody say something stupid in an elevator. I hear a cool like rhyme or play on words. Or sometimes it's as simple as like, I don't really want the words to rise to the surface. Sometimes I just like the way the letter forms look together. So sometimes it's just sitting down and playing around. There's no right or wrong way. Like if for the next 2 weeks, I feel like there's no words, like nothing like sounds amazing, and I just want to focus on like geometric composition or something, like that's cool too. It's really day by day, and whatever the day or the week brings is what makes its way into the poster. So it's a lot of just staying perceptive and documenting that, because there are times when I hear something and I'm like, I'll remember it.
Right.
That'll be cool. And you don't write it down. And then I'm just beating myself up at 10 p.m. when I'm trying to make one of these. Like, God, I know that would have been so cool had I just pulled out my phone or wrote it down on a piece of paper. It would have been so much better.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you have a Notion document that you keep these scraps of ideas. I imagine you probably have a lot of scraps, more than you have time to make each one. So there's a backlog of ideas that you can try.
Yes,
is that right? Yep.
That's usually where I start, is this Notion document. And it's not just words. It's like clippings I find, or cool effects, or brushes. And then on top of that, like I have a folder on my hard drive just called image hoarding, where every time I see something cool at mine, it goes there.
Right.
And when I sit down at the computer, I just like shuffle through them and see what sparks my interest.
Nice. Okay, that's like your creative sounding board, your creative muse. Okay, yep. Catherine Murda Adams is asking again, does he start off with sketching or thumbnails, or how do you begin this process?
Each day, is that what they mean?
Yeah, like for the posters.
I usually start with a blank canvas. Like I know some people like to go and try to get inspired right away. Like they don't want to look at the blank canvas or something, but I always navigate to poster.psd, open that up, and I stare at it for a minute. And usually within the first 30 seconds, I know like how difficult it's going to be, based on like what things have like struck me throughout the day, or what's top of mind. Sometimes you're just burnt out after a long day, and the last thing you want to do is put it in the work. But were they asking how I get like inspired, or how?
No. Like how does it begin? Like blank page, you have an idea, you just start grabbing elements and throwing them on, or is there little thumbnails or sketching you do? How does this process begin?
I don't know if I've ever sketched a thumbnail or put pencil to paper for like how these posters will look. Yeah, I actually don't think I've ever done that. That's what I did a lot in like student work, and that's also what I do in professional work because I want to exhaust all the ideas. But for this case, it's just more like of the moment, whatever I'm feeling. I do not sketch for these. What a lot of the sketching just happens like on the computer. A lot of these posters, even some of the ones you show, if you could look in the Photoshop document, they're 85 layers deep, and there's groups that just say like crap, garbage, don't open. Like there's just a bunch of bad ideas under the final polished one. So iteration happens like right there on the canvas.
Okay, so some other questions about when do you start? Do you do this before you go to work, after you work? And then how long does it take you to crank out one?
Yeah, those are good questions. What I typically do, and what I have done for most of it, is I just extend the workday for an hour or two. Like I just stay at work a little bit longer. Because it's no fun to like work a whole bunch and then feel like you get to lighten up a little bit and then go back to work. Like I would much rather just extend the workday a couple hours. So I almost never do them in the morning because I'm not a morning person. What I'll typically do, is I'll work throughout the whole day, go get dinner, and then sit down for an extra hour or two and pump them out. So on average, I'd say the average is about an hour. There are some that have taken me 5-6 hours. There are others that have taken 5-6 minutes. Actually, I was just looking yesterday at my most liked one, the one that people physically tapped like the most on. I made that in about 6 minutes.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if that's good or bad. Like that might just be maybe after however many posters, like you just strike gold or something. But I remember I was just sitting with my buddies and it was like 11:45 and we wanted to watch a movie, 11:45 p.m. And I was like, oh my God, I haven't even made one of these things yet. So I was like, just give me 5 minutes. I'll just make something in 5 minutes. And that ended up being my most liked poster, which is crazy. That's
really cool. And I think that sometimes when you're given such tight time constraints and you feel that pressure because you got your buddy that you want to go watch a movie with, that you're just you get into that flow state. You stop thinking, you stop becoming self-aware, and all your instincts take over. I've also found that some of my highest performing carousels are posts that somebody else made for me, but no, just kidding. The ones that I'm like, I don't know if there's any good, I don't have a lot of time, I'm just going to do this thing. And it forces you to keep things simple. I think a lot of times creatives have a tendency to overwork their projects and keep adding and just moving things around and shifting one pixel to the left, one pixel to the right. It really doesn't make that much of a difference. So that is quite fascinating that sometimes the best work is the one that you spend the least effort on. So I have a question for you here from John Pesk, okay? I'm going to get the sound effect ready. He's like, hey, Roy, what resources, courses, books, etc. would you recommend for us who are starting to learn typography? Looking for something to jump on after I finish reading Stop Stealing Sheep. Please.
The Future. 100% the Future. And I don't say that just because like I'm here. I'm not kidding. Chris, there's a couple of videos where you sit down with, I believe, Molly and Emily, and you go over poster design layouts and editorial layouts. I studied those. I watched them. They're like an hour, 2 hours long, and I would watch them on repeat until I could watch and see. I could see the mistakes that you were going to call out beforehand. And I was like, oh, that lighting needs to be tighter. We need a visual.
Oh, I see. You could predict the critique.
Yeah, so once I got that down, I was like, oh, and there's great language in there too of you critiquing. I start to understand how to talk about these things like spatial constraints and visual composition. And then, and when people ask me, like, what do you recommend? I always tell them to go to those videos. I know they're a few years old, and I'm like, those are gold. Those are, like, that was my typography class, were those videos.
Yes. I think you need to update your LinkedIn resume. I think you need to put the Future in there as part of your post-school education or something like that.
Sure. Yeah, I'll put it in there.
Because I'm like, it's pretty thin, your resume on LinkedIn. So go ahead and pad it out a little bit, you know? Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. So Brad McQueen is asking, what's Roy's favorite font? That's a great question. Everybody wants to know. I think you use a couple. I could see them. So go ahead. Please tell us.
I think Helvetica is probably king. Helvetica Neue.
Yes.
right now, I was just talking to my coworker. I'm super into Druck. Druck is awesome.
Druck? What the Druck? All right.
Yeah. Din is incredible.
Of course.
Like, these are all like all around, like just grade A. Like you don't mess
Prime
with these.
cut. Yes, you don't mess with them.
Kings. Yeah. Those are kind of like objectively like my favorites. But as I do more and more of these, I realize that I'm more open to like crazy ones too. And now, like I used to be like slap someone's wrist if they stretch type, but now I'm starting to like experiment and do stuff. Because I think the statement is really true. Like once you know the rules, you can learn how to like break them correctly. Because like if you're just stretching type to fill a Word document, it's going to look awful. But there are ways, like I'm learning now that there are ways to do it tastefully. There's more ways to use type. I learn more ways to use type basically every day.
Nice.
So I guess that kind of answers the font question.
You're also using some black letter stuff. Are you using what typeface are you using for your black letter? Is it Futur? What are you using?
I don't know actually. It's just something from Google Fonts. If you just go to fonts.google.com and you just dig around for a little bit, you can find some really cool ones. Same with Adobe Typekit. There's some really cool stuff on there. Like when I was kind of into this weird like 70 styles typography like trip I had for like 2 weeks, it was one of those weekends where I just like did a deep dive, and there's great stuff out there. Like there's a great free stuff. I've spent a lot of money on typefaces, but you don't have to. There's so much good stuff out there.
Yeah, there is. Okay, that's a good question. Let's see here. So he takes about 2 hours. He does this like after work or at work, right? You're like, go dinner, come back and do your work. And let me see here. What else we got? What other questions do we have? Jonah, do you see any good questions? Are you reading the questions too?
I'm reading them, but you took all the good ones.
I know. Sorry. I think I've asked all the other questions here. We've covered this. And hey, Adobe, Google, stock photography companies, Nike, if you guys want to sponsor Roy and the Future, let us know. Okay, let's see what else we can talk about here.
Well, I do have something I could talk about.
Okay.
I get messages almost every day, and it's really a cool feeling. But people message me and they're like, I'm a big fan. I really like what you do. How can I start? How can I do this too? Mm-hmm. How do I find the time? How do I find the motivation? And there's no like sweet, perfect, like concise answer to those things. There's no magic like fairy dust that you can sprinkle that'll just give you all the tools you need. What I tell people typically is just like start today. Don't worry about everything else. Because people tend to get paralyzed by all the details. It's like when people want to start running, they go look up like what's the best running shoe, where to run, best times to run, nutrition, and they just like they get paralyzed by information and they don't start. And what people really should be doing is just not worrying about those things and just start today. And I really mean that. Like if someone's watching this right now and they're like, that sounds cool, I would like to do that even for 30 days. It's like as soon as the stream ends, just go make something. It's really not that hard. People ask me like, how do you keep up it's like 340 something days now in a row. And it's like, honestly, the momentum carries you a long way. After you hit like 40 or 50 days, you're like, well, it would suck more to quit than it would to just work for an extra hour. But those first 50 days, it's like, just set some time aside for something that you care about and something you want to get better at. Mm-hmm. And another thing is, I'm not a good example of this, but you don't have to post everything online. The world doesn't have to see everything you make. If you're really worried about mistakes or paralyzed by fear of failure, like you can just make stuff and keep it on your desktop. And then if you feel like posting it in a week, then it's cool. But just hold yourself accountable and just put in the work. Extend your workday an extra hour if you think it'll be beneficial.
Yeah, I want to say something else to everybody who's having this trouble starting, and it was just coincidental that we had people on here yesterday who's been doing a piece of art every day for 12 years, almost every single day. Is that not everything's a hit? You don't always, write Let It Be or whatever, it's not always a hit, and it's totally okay. I'm looking at Roy's feed. This is not a criticism, but just the reality of it is some of his posters I love. I would hang on the wall, and some like, it's okay. But you get through that, and it's through that tonnage, the iteration of trying ideas, and then after doing Helvetica so many ways, and he starts to stretch it, and he starts to do things with repeating the type and putting it at an angle. And this is where the good stuff comes from, by doing something over and over again. And I'm going to assume, too, through repetition, that's where your confidence comes from. So that's the secret, guys. Whether it's YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, whatever it is, just put your stuff out there, and maybe even just don't even pay attention to who's watching, who's following you, and what kind of feedback you're getting. Just go and do it. Okay, Max B is asking, who are your design heroes? People love that kind of question, so throw it up to you.
Okay, so it kind of like goes in waves, I guess. David Carson is up there. Chris Ashworth is huge. Who was on the show, so that was a great episode. And then I also have just like a handful of studios that I follow. Oh, Chris, actually, I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but like you're definitely one.
That's all right.
Do you know that I used to, this is so stupid and embarrassing, but I used to have a photo of you above my computer at my internship. And
how'd you get a picture of me?
I just printed it out.
Okay.
I just
found
one on a Google or something. And it was always kind of like one of those things where whenever I was stuck or something, it was a picture of you going like this. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
I know exactly which one you're talking about. It's me being really mean.
Exactly. You were being mean to me. You're like, dude, what's your problem? Just
1 hour.
Finish.
1 hour. Roy Cranston.
That's what it was.
1 hour.
Yeah.
There's your animated GIF.
Perfect.
Yes. Okay. Excellent. Okay, so you said Chris Ashworth, David Carson. Do I see a little Wolfgang Weingart in there?
Yes.
Yes.
How did I forget him?
TC. You know, the legends. I mean, it's almost like you took a type course from here or something. Yes.
Yeah.
Boom.
So honestly, and if I can't list them all, but if you just go through the people I follow on Instagram too, there's a lot of good ones in there as well.
Yeah.
Not like Weingart is on Instagram necessarily.
Right.
But that would be a good place to start if people want some resources.
Okay. Ricky, one of my guys, is actually asking you this. Hey, in case there is anything else to ask, do you have a question for me, Roy? And just think about it. I'm going to read another question here. I'm opening it up for you as well. So Catherine's just bringing the fire today. How much sleep do you get?
I get a normal amount.
Well, that depends on who you're asking. What is normal?
I'd say on average I get like 7 hours.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So what suffers is usually not my sleep. I know during school and stuff like that, what suffered was like my social life. For anybody that knew me, my senior year, I didn't really leave the fine arts building. I was there from like 15, 16 hours a day, working on school. And then any chance I got in between there was when I worked on my daily posters. I typically get a pretty good amount of sleep. That's not really something I sacrifice too much.
Okay. There's two really good back-to-back comments and questions here. The first one is, can we have a live... This is from Melvin Thamby. I should know how to say his name. He's in the pro group. Can we have a live video of Roy working on his posters? I think that would be dope. Can you record something and throw it our way so that we can share as a supplement to this episode?
Yeah, just shoot me an email. Okay,
excellent. It's my email, so shoot it to me. I'll post it up here. Not to Melvin specifically. That we'll share it here, okay? And then Anthony Sanchez says, hey, talk about that Futur X Cranston collaboration, eh? Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. It's like, let's do something together.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Maybe we should do one of those pass it on things where you start it, I work on it, I pass it on to you, it just bounces back and forth, and we save each iteration, and then we'll reveal like every iteration. Does that make sense?
I really like that. Yeah. Did you just come up with that on the spot? Because I like that idea.
I'm going to say no. No, there's like there's collaborations like that where you do something, you hand it to the next person, and then they change it, and it keeps getting handed all over the world, and the sequence is set. But it's just you and me. You do something, I do something, and we just pass it back and forth. It'd be really fun to try something with you, okay?
I dig it.
And then we'll save all the iterations and we'll reveal it all at once. So great suggestion. He's game. So let's see what else we got here. Any other questions here?
I have a question for you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Since it like kind of came up. So my initial idea was I'm just going to do this for 1 year from New Year's to December 31st.
Yep.
and what happens. That's going to be my growth period, and then we'll reevaluate after that. And what I'm thinking now is, when I consider what 2019 has done for me, or more rather what the work I've done in 2019 has done for me, I feel foolish to not continue doing that, because every opportunity I've had has been from this like project. Like, part of me says that would be stupid to stop. Like, why would you stop? Like, you've already said that it's really not that difficult. But there's the other part of me that says, I have like this habitual nature with Instagram. I don't have a good relationship with my phone. Like, this is something people don't really talk about. Like, you're just always refreshing and seeing the likes and that stuff.
Right.
Also, like, I don't want to like say that 1 year is anything crazy, especially after you just had Beeple on, who's like over a decade of this stuff. Like, I don't want to sound like 1 year is anything particularly like worthy of a milestone, but also, like, you kind of want a break at some point. Like, not a break in the sense of like, I just want to stop working, but a break in the sense of like, what can I do instead of working on posters for 30 days or something, as like a recharge period, like meditate on it. So I guess my question for you is, like, given what you know about the project and myself, and just as an objective viewer from outside, what would you do? What would you recommend? Do you think?
Yeah.
Do you think you switch gears?
I think you've done an incredible thing to be consistent with something for over 300 days. It takes about 45 days for something to become habit. It's kind of interesting because you said right around day 40, it became its own level of momentum. I think some people call that muscle memory. There's a more scientific term for that too. It's just you got to get into that groove. And in doing this, you learn so much, and you may have gone through, in a way, 4 years of type class in a normal university in just 1 year, just doing this on your own. I know you've done more, so it's probably like 6 years or something like that. I think that's really cool. At some point, you become a slave to the fact that I got to do this every single day. Now, I'm going to speak to it honestly here on YouTube. For a while there, I was posting 2, 3, 4 times a day on Instagram, and it was consuming my life. I mean, because these things take hours for me to write and produce, and that was my entire day, and I really didn't do all that much else. And it was cool because it got me to my goal. I got to my 200,000 subs or follows on Instagram, and I was really happy about that. And now I don't feel so compelled to do it. And I'm just speaking for myself. Like, I want to be inspired when I make stuff, and sometimes taking a break, being bored, doing nothing. And I'm a big believer in this, that boredom is the precursor to creative moments that are really going to change the game. So when you're doing work every single day, you're just kind of the hamster in the wheel. I think it would be great for you to take a break with no expectations about what you're going to do, when you're going to do it, and then come back to it. Maybe you have some brand new ideas. Maybe all you can do is collect things and to think and to reflect. And I think that would be okay. And if you never come back to doing it every single day, I think it's totally fine. Like right now, I'm posting like once or twice a week. I'm still picking up about 3,000 or 4,000 follows a week, even just posting that seldomly. Once you built up the momentum, you're okay. There's at least 300 ideas in there that if somebody can't figure out what Roy Cranston is about, they're not worth working with. That's it. That's all I can say about that.
I think we kind of share the same sentiment then, and I'm glad you said that, because if you would have said another year of it, I would have had to strongly consider that. But
yeah, no, I'm not going to steer down that path.
Cool. So there are a lot of things you said there that I just completely agree with. And when I was talking earlier about someone like Beeple, who's done 10 years, I do not want to downplay 10 years. Or he's actually at like
12 years. He's on his 12th year.
I should not even. 2 extra years is still a lot as opposed to 10. But I will say, once you've done 1 year, you could do 10 years. Like, there's not much difference. Like, the momentum will just carry you through. I can't say for certain, I would just assume that it gets easier as you go, actually. Mm-hmm. So I kind of feel like I've proved myself in terms of like consistency and discipline. And I have made 2019 my most productive year yet, which was my goal. And yeah, I kind of do want this period of tranquility and reflection, because I also definitely agree about the boredom like leads to creativity. And that's a problem that I think I see a lot of people have right now, is people just aren't bored anymore.
Yeah.
Like, we've pretty much eradicated boredom as humans. Like you can get in the elevator and instead of waiting 30 seconds to get to your floor, you can read through Donald Trump's tweets on your phone instead. You can, there's no break mentally. And I think there's even a story about how one of the like top selling brushes on Adobe was some guy that was like looking at his sandwich or some jelly or something, like just completely bored. And then he ended up making it into a brush and sold like $100,000 worth. That was just like an idea born out of boredom. And we just don't have as many of those moments anymore. And I don't want to fall slave to that. So I really want a period of like boredom.
Perfect. Some people are like, keep going, but don't. No, you got to do what's right for you. It's easy to tell someone else keep going. You guys keep going and see how that works out. Now, Eric Espinoza is saying what I described to you in terms of you do something and passing it back to me. It's called an exquisite corpse. Now, I might get myself into a little trouble, and I don't know why I always do this, but I don't think that's what an exquisite corpse is, Eric. I believe an exquisite corpse, true to its original nature, is somebody draws the head, somebody draws the body, somebody draws the legs. It's like those games, and they're connected by those joints. And that's, I think, the definition of an exquisite corpse, the head, the body, and the leg. What I'm talking about is he works on something, I work on top of it, so there is no edge or boundary as to what we're doing. But I appreciate you bringing that up. The internet is about to proceed to beat me up in... And then there you go. Okay, let's see what else is going on here. Peter Janeka is saying hello from the Czech Republic. Finally watching your live video. Thank you very much, Peter. What else? What other questions do we have? Roy, do you have anything else?
I do want to talk about like monetization of
Let's do it.
Like your work, like my work specific or anybody's work when they're making stuff like this. Because this is another message I get all the time, like, where can I buy these posters?
Good one.
And it's tough because I make them at, sadly, not a very great resolution for reproduction. So if you wanted to buy this, it'd be like a sheet of 8.5 by 11 printer paper. Like, that's not that cool. Like, some of these I would like to blow up to be huge. But regardless of that, I don't really like the idea too much of selling individual pieces, because the project for me feels like everything is like a whole. So my idea has kind of been to maybe make some sort of like zine or book or something out of the project and then sell that. But the thing is, like, I don't know if people are interested in that. Some people just like one or two. You know, they're not super interested in the whole project like I am. Like, I'm self-invested in it. I don't know. There's not really a question in there, but it's something that I get asked basically every day.
I could either give you some advice or help you with that. I think you probably can print a book. Just print a book. But I would kickstart it so that you don't make a book that nobody wants.
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, I don't really know how much interest is out there. And I've thought about it. Like,
yeah.
I could like gauge interest through my Instagram story or something. But yeah, I just don't know how much.
I'm going to tell you how to do this, okay? Here we go.
Okay.
Everybody that's listening, if you have a similar idea to Roy and you kind of think, I want to put something together and monetize what I've done, what I would do is to either buy or build a mock-up and show what the book cover looks like, show a couple of spreads, and then post it to your social media and say, who would be interested in this? And I'm serious, like, this is this kind of printing, it would cost about this amount of money. And you're going to get probably a massive amount of response. Now, only a few percentage of those would actually convert because people like talk with their fingers, not with their wallets. You know, that's happened to us a gazillion times. We're like, oh, take my money. And then we release it like, and where are you now when we've actually made everything? Okay, but I would do it like that. And if you don't want to get into the book design, publishing, promotion business, depending on the interest, I'd be interested in collaborating with you on this.
That sounds awesome. Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah. Okay. Great. What other questions do we have? People are enjoying the conversation. It's a Friday. We're chill. Roy's like home from work.
No better way to end the week. I can't imagine a better way.
Home from work a little early, and we're doing this live stream here. Let's take on a couple more questions, and let's get out of here, and everybody go your way. Okay, people are like, yeah, go make it. A bunch of people are saying, I'll buy it. Well, we'll see when you actually post it and see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it always happens that way. I'm just warning you.
I figured. That makes sense.
Okay, here's a good one from Max B. He's like, Roy, when did you know design was your calling? That's an excellent question.
That is a great question. And that's something I don't even really think about too much anymore because I'm like, you're just so deep into it already that I don't really, I forget the context of like how I got here.
Yeah.
But just a little bit of backstory. Like I had spoken about earlier, my mom's an artist and I have a creative, like had a creative upbringing. My whole family's like creative in the like holistic sense. They might not necessarily like be designers or anything like that, but it's a creative like atmosphere. And specifically, my mom would get the Museum of Modern Art design store catalogs when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like the weird fifth grader that really wanted like an Eames chair. That's like all I cared about. Whereas most fifth graders are like playing Pokemon and stuff. Well, I did that too. But so this was kind of always in the back of my head. And I took all the art classes in high school. And then when it came time to pick a school, I just figured I was like, I'll either just do graphic design because it seems like a way to monetize like creativity, I guess. I was like 17. I didn't really know much. Or I'll do architecture. Those were two things that really interested me. I loved Frank Lloyd Wright growing up and Mies van der Rohe and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So then I pretty much only applied to one school, which is the college I ended up going to, and they didn't have architecture. They had graphic design, and I was like, cool, I'll stick with that. I don't know what that is. I guess I'll make billboards or something. And then I would also say that I always loved typography. I just didn't really know what it was. I was super into fonts, and like when I was in middle school, I was the kid with like crazy weird fonts on all my assignments and stuff. But my passion or design is my calling. Was that the question?
That was the question. How'd you know this is your thing, man?
I still don't know if it's my thing. Like, I think there's probably other things out there for me that like sound super cool. Like music interests me a lot. I'm like love music, but regardless of that, I think it was just around like year 1 or 2 of college, like something kind of clicked. It was right around the time I found the Futur, and I was like putting all the puzzle pieces together, and I was like, wow, I'm actually kind of good at this. Like I'm perceptive and I can like recognize patterns and I can figure out why things work and put them to use. I don't think there was an epiphany moment necessarily.
Oh, you can say it. You found your calling when you found us.
Yeah. I mean, it was that time period.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, yeah.
I'm just messing around, you guys. All right. Keep going.
I mean, it's hard. I can't put my finger on exactly when that moment was, but I know now that if I'm doing design for the rest of my life, I will be more than happy. So I think it was like a ramp up that happened. And this poster series was a nice validation for me that like I'm okay at this stuff. Like I'm not bad, and it's a nice way. I can literally go back to January 2nd or January 1st and see where I started and see how much better I've become throughout the year. And so I don't know. That's such a bad answer, but
it's not always that clear. It's like a series of a lot of little things that connect and click for you, and that's okay. It's not always that clear, but if you find your calling, if you find what you love earlier than later, it's good. It's better if you do. So congrats to you and you being able to kind of pursue what it is that you love and find some pretty unconventional ways to get there. All right. I think I'm going to end it on this one question here. Okay. Here's the question. Marin Domazet is asking, how much do you like the business side of design? Like when you're doing this freelance side hustle thing, and you got to deal with estimating, invoicing, tracking time, building, getting hopefully 50% up front, doing everything we've been teaching you. Do you like that part of it, or you hate? What's your feeling about it?
I love the idea that people like what I do enough to give me money for it. And that is an incredible feeling. That goes back to like the validation, and it's like a personal confidence thing. But then once we get into the nitty gritty and it comes to invoicing and billing and the finances and stuff, I want to be very good at it, but I wouldn't say I super enjoy it. So one thing I watch a ton of the Futur on like how to do this stuff because I don't want to be the person that's bad at it.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't. I don't necessarily enjoy it that much.
Yeah. So it's a means to an end for you, the business stuff.
I would say so, yeah. But I think I do not want to understate its importance. I think it's as important as the design stuff too. If your profession is going to be freelance, if you're gonna control all your money and stuff, like it doesn't matter if you're the best designer in the world. Like if you're starving, like you're starving. Like if you're the best designer in the world, you should be paid like the best designer, and it's your responsibility to figure out how to get that done.
Yeah, I think we want to make some distinctions here. If you enjoy doing design and you want that to be your hobby, your side thing, you don't have to be that good about the business stuff. But if you wanted to be a person who's going to be doing this to run a company, to make money, to save money, to build a future for yourself, for your future family, or wherever else, to help out your parents or your sister to go through school, whatever it is that you're trying to do, I think you have to just say that it can't be a hobby anymore. It's a professional thing. If we think about doctors, lawyers, attorneys, they go through very professional training to get where they're at. They do post-school studies and practice and apprenticeships. There's a lot of work that goes into this so that they can learn how to do what they do. So if you want to be successful at this and be a professional, you have to some degree, be familiar, conversant in the language of business. That's just my opinion. Okay, I'm going to read a couple of last comments, and I'm going to do the show summary. We haven't done that in a little while. So Rafael Sandoval is saying, thank you, Chris, Roy, Matthew, everyone. I'm from New York, so this is so cool. Awesome questions, and really into it. Somebody was asking about your music, they must know something about you that I don't know. Was there something going on there? Somebody who knows you really well.
Potentially. I think if you Google me, maybe my SoundCloud will come up and I have some piano stuff on.
Yes, the piano stuff. That's what they're asking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you play piano as well?
Yeah, I play piano and guitar.
You have a piano there?
No, I just moved here, so it's pretty bare bones.
I see.
That's in the plans, though.
Okay, in the next episode, when we have Roy back on the show, he's going to play the piano and take us out off the air. Okay. Max B is saying, you're an inspiration, Roy. He's the same age and has a similar story and background. Maybe he'll start up on Instagram. So there you go. You've inspired somebody.
Start today.
There you go. Raphael also saying, Roy, you compliment Chris. Chris, you compliment everyone. Thanks very much, Raphael. Okay, here's another question. Shoot, I'm breaking my own rule here. One more question.
That's okay.
Dead Spirit. Do these daily challenges actually help you as a designer? Isn't the whole point of being a designer to be able to change the style of your work for a specific project and not stick to the same style? I can answer this very strongly for you, but I'm going to let you go first.
Sure. I think that's a great question. These are simply exercises. It's if you look at my work from 2019, there's a pretty wide variety, and I've learned so much along the way that now when I sit down at the studio and we have real clients come in and we have to present or pitch 3 different directions, I have all these skill sets and this knowledge in the back of my head, and I can just swap between them. My whole thing throughout this project is if my attention goes elsewhere and I find another interest, I'll just tap into it. So I have built out a really large toolbox that I can tap into.
Mm-hmm.
But you're right. Being a designer is the ability to let go of your ego and make the objective decision sometimes to figure out what the best move forward is. I don't think doing daily work will ever hurt you in that sense. My work definitely comes through in projects too, because I'm in a position where clients approach me because they like my daily work. That's what they want. So I'm fortunate in that sense. But it doesn't hurt me. It has only helped me. Okay.
I'm going to answer this in a slightly stronger tone. Chris 2.0 is going to go away for a second, you guys. Chris 1.0 is coming back just for a little bit. So Dead Spirit, so you're wondering, doing these daily challenges. So it sounds like you don't want to do the daily challenges. And a lot of times I'm reading into the message here. A lot of times people feel I don't want to do that. So I'm going to find the flaw in doing that so I don't have to change. It's if you want to get fit, it's oh, what are you going to do after you work out? It's oh, aren't you just a meathead at that point? So everybody seems to take that stance. And I'm saying to you guys, if you're willing to listen to this, instead of wondering why, I want you to ask yourself, why not? Just give it a shot and try it out. Do these daily challenges, right? So here's the thing about daily challenges. It forces you to become creative every single day. And yes, you are expressing maybe your own art, your own vision, your own passion, and who's going to criticize that? Like, what's wrong with exploring your voice and trying something that you haven't done before, so that when you need to apply that specific style for that client, it's not the very first time you're doing it. The alternative, let's look at the alternative. You don't do any work ever, and then this new style that you have to do for this client, you're going to try to learn that style on the job. What's your confidence in being able to do that? Is it like that much? So I find the opposite to be true. If you only do certain kinds of work and you don't spend any time to experiment or try new things, you're more likely going to lean on that solution because the fear of doing something new and different is too scary, because the risk of failure is too great. So that's a funky question. I think mostly it's because the idea of doing a daily challenge is very frightening for a lot of people. I want to try to listen with a little bit of empathy here, and I get that, but why try and tear that idea down? Okay, I don't think that's like a really fair question. And on that, there's one more question in here. I'm gonna have to just bust this one right now, and if you have something to add to it, be my guest. Errol Sanders asking, how do you find the balance between copying and doing your own stuff when being inspired by another designer? Now, Errol, unless you live in a white universe, meaning white space, white floors, white ceiling, no textures, no patterns, you've never been exposed to a single piece of visual material in your life, then I guess you're not copying or being inspired by anybody. But I think it's a fool's errand to think, if you don't look at something immediately, that you've created original work. I think we have to let go of this idea that there is such a thing as original work. Aren't we all a byproduct of our experiences, our influences from our culture, and the things that we see, hear, learn, read, and are told? Why do we hold on to this idea? I think Paul Rand said this, just stop trying to be different. Just try to be good, because being good is really hard. Just be good. And if being good means you rip off work like an artist, you steal like an artist for a while, totally okay. And then eventually you cannot help it, but when things travel through your hands and through your eyes and your brain, you change things. It is very, very difficult to do an exact copy. I don't know if you know this, but people are very good at counterfeit, like making counterfeit bills and certificates. They have a very high IQ. I don't pretend to have that kind of IQ, so you know what? It's really not that easy to copy somebody exactly. And a lot of this has to do with your intent too. If you are copying because you're learning and you're developing, don't show that work. Just do it on your own. Just keep doing that. You are allowed to be influenced and inspired by people. That's the whole point. You're on the show watching people to be inspired by. You may go home today, bust out a one a day every day. That's the whole point. Just let go of that idea, because it's hurting you as a creative human being more than anything else. Roy, do you want to add anything to that before we wrap up the show?
I think you did a great job. One of my favorite quotes is that same one. Yeah, don't worry about being original. Just worry about being good. And I definitely take that to heart.
Beautiful. Okay, now before we say goodbye to Roy, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate you doing what you do. I think there are some future collaboration stuff for you and I to work on. You know, when you get bored of your job, let me know what you want to do. So we'll see what happens there. Okay, so here's some bullet points I made. I don't know if this is 100% accurate, so forgive me if it's wrong. The thing that allows Roy to do what he does is he collects a lot of ideas, words, images, scraps, and he puts them in different buckets, whether it's on his desktop in that giant folder of inspirational crap, or ideas in Notion. He writes them down. He's like, it's very important to capture it while it's still there, because it'll disappear on you. And in the beginning, as in many things in life, don't worry about the feedback. Don't worry about other people's opinion. Just do it. Nike, are you calling us? Okay, just do it. And the key to all of this is to be consistent so you can develop a habit. I think the magic point is 40, 45 days, as some scientists have told us, so you can develop that muscle memory that we're talking about. You want to use constraints. This is actually more liberating than you think. Use constraints, a time constraint, okay? Or you can only use 2 colors or 1 typeface. Use those constraints to your advantage. And his real breakthrough in Instagram and getting that growth spurt that he had was to actually use the tools in the way they were meant to be designed. You have to teach the software. You have to teach the platform on how to recognize your work. So looking at work that you admire, that you're kind of adjacent to, just look at their hashtags. If they have a big following, chances are those hashtags are going to work. And you want to teach your software. We're kind of related. If you follow that person, you may also want to follow this person. That's what you do. in him learning all the rules, he's now pretty liberated to break all of them. And it's kind of important in terms of the sequence in which you do that. Young, foolish people, in my opinion, try to break the rules, and then they go and learn them later. And it's just that's a backwards way of doing it. And I think you said that you had participated in some kind of competition. I don't know if it was 30 days of type, but it sounded something like that. Was it 30 days of type?
It was 36 days of type.
Okay, 36. I was missing 6 there. Okay, so 36 days of type. Let me correct that because the internet's going to get mad at me. Participate in a competition like 36 days of type and do great work because you're going to rise to the top. He said that every time he did that, he was, number 1, number 2, or at least in the top 5. So people saw that. Work opportunities came. People asked him about your design heroes and inspiration. You said David Carson, Chris Ashworth. Ashworth has been on the show. We'll get David Carson here at some point. And other people like the masters, right? The masters are all out there. And this is going to burst some people's bubble because they're like, social media, you can't buy food with social media. Why is he's always talking about social media? Well, I think Roy is buying food with social media. He got almost all of his leads from posting on Instagram, freelance work, which led to opportunities, which now led to his full-time job. Now he's living large in New York City. New York City. That's what he's doing. And the last point he's making is don't just watch, study the freaking future. Apply what we teach you. If you guys want to get in touch with Roy Cranston, Nike, are you listening? Google, Apple, Adobe, whatever. Roy _ Cranston at Roy _ Cranston. You can also go to his work in progress site. It's under construction right now, roycranston.com. You guys, thank you very much for tuning in on this Friday. Wherever you're at, I hope you're doing well. I just want to remind you of one thing. You are not defined by your past. The future is what you make it. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that bell notification. Love you guys. The donation. See you guys later. Sustaining members. My music. Oh, there we go. Little fumble on the pad here. It's like little sticky fumble fingers, guys. Roy, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was awesome.